Hello Collective and welcome back to the channel. It's Al, and today I'm going to do something a little daring. I'm going to face my fears and kind of just speak to directly what I'm looking at as far as the future for altruistic channels and the future of things that I really want to invest my time in. And one of the things I realize is that there's the hard way to do things and then there's the easy way to do things. So I decided that I would take the challenge and just go ahead and speak to the collective in a way that's very welcoming and very honest. So what I've been working on behind the scenes is I've been trying to get a particular program on the air, if you will, that deals specifically with the controversial topics in a very open and transparent way that helps the collective hear their own voices in the words of a celebrity or an influential person. And one of the problems that I have is that, as you can imagine, getting anybody interested in that takes a little bit of time. And so with the incoming earthquake that's due anytime now, I decided that, well, if this is it, I'm going to go out with a bang. And so I decided that I would just go ahead and put it out there. So imagine, if you will, collective, a program that is dedicated towards uniting influential and visionary people to bring them to the table. And it's an informal setting that allows them to be themselves and to speak very candidly, knowing that the opposing side is very much going to be there in a welcoming manner. And everybody's there to try to work to meet at least in the middle, even if they're opposing sides. Like the evangelical preacher with the occultist would come to the table and we would discuss topics related to the controversial things that separate the house instead of uniting it. And our effort would be to bring the house back together. And so they would be engaged in honest conversations where the viewership would be able to actually follow the conversation, because the people speaking would be the delegation that represents all of the different demographics. And though that sounds very visionary, it's actually very practical. And one of the great things about the idea is that it brings everybody into the same conversation at once. And I've been speaking to the fact that in the past we've encountered a situation where everything's done behind closed doors, and it leads to a lot of conspiracy and a lot of divisiveness and a lot of combative behavior. And we're at a point in our lives as a collective race of humanity that we no longer have that luxury. And things are getting a little bit more dicey and more complicated. And if we don't course correct, there's going to be major adjustments. And so the show actually focuses on the idea of being proactive in ways that deals with the darkest of shadows through the specific delegation brought together of either pioneers in mechanics or visionaries in astrophysics, or celebrities that have a humanitarian thing about them, that they have a big drive to do things for humanity, and brings them all into alignment with the goal of looking at the darkest parts of ourselves and being strong enough to say what we are thinking, and therefore having the humanity itself hear its own voice, and then deal with the topics in a way that brings proactive solutions to the table and focuses our energy on the positive. So let's say the two people are differing in religious war context, right? Because we know that we're in a religious war setting right now, or that we're heading into it. So how would we bring different people from different houses of faith together and to have a conversation where they can meet in the middle, where they can talk about humanitarian effort, about helping the homeless, about helping the barefoot, as they say, or how about helping humanity change course correct in what we're doing with bioterrorism, or what we're doing with things that hurt the planet. And instead of being at each other with special interests, why not represent the everyday person and remind ourselves that we are humble and kind, and take that to the next level in a setting that's very, very welcoming to everyone, and allow the viewership to decide if they're interested in actually having a transparent leadership, and then take it to the next level. Each week would vary with different topics in a different group of 5 people, let's say. And instead of it being like The View or something that is like talky and just, it's literally conversations. It's a very informal conversation that happens within a group of very important people who literally sit there, and instead of focusing on the negative or in one-upping each other, is welcoming and loving of each other and trying to find where they're coming from and engage it like around some place. It's like even like a fire setting, like a fireplace, and people are just having a cocktail and just talking very informally about things. And instead of it being about ratings, how about just make it about humanity? How about representing the woman who's been beaten her whole life, and by someone who's overcome that and how they did it, and then the rest of the panel listen, engage, ask questions that they wouldn't have thought to share, and have that voice heard. And then the other person introduced, let's say, that they got beaten or they got gay bashed, and then speak about that experience and how they came out of that, and have everybody be nurturing and welcoming, but still be open to people saying, well, I don't agree, I think that homosexuality is an abomination, and then have the conversation very candidly amongst the peer group, and allow the environment to be so nurturing and welcoming to make sure that everybody comes out okay from the situation, but allows an honest banter, because people who hear themselves in other people's mouths typically won't at first identify that it's them. And so by actually illustrating what true leadership is with different opposing views, and have it in a conversational format instead of it being TV rated related or whatnot, would bring the world into a unified stance, because they would eventually realize that they're hearing themselves in even the most negative of things. It was Maya Angelou who said, who made a comment one day that I thought was very interesting, where she spoke to the fact that we are extensions of each other. That everything that we think that the other person has done that we could never do is just an extension of ourselves. And that she was having, I think she said she was still struggling with that one. And for me, I've learned in my life that I've seen things from all different sides, and now I look at the world in a very, very circular manner. Everything has multiple truths. And if we can represent that to the world and show them what the divine universe is actually made of, where it's made of checks and balances, and brings them into the controversial topics. Like, okay, we do at the moment need oil refineries. How can we mitigate the damage we do to the planet? Instead of coming at each other just over the money, financial portions of it, well, let's look at the ethical and moral ramifications in a way that welcomes humanity to follow along. When you represent the voice of the people and you actually make them hear themselves, they're more willing to make the changes that need to happen and unite and face adversity. One of the greatest challenges we have in our world is that we constantly are stuck in a state of divisiveness. We're so paralyzed with opposing views that we forget that if we just happen to ask the question and listen to the answer and not take it personally, then we might be able to make a difference. And so this show would center around that. And for a while there, I was sitting there and I was trying to do this all by myself, and I was trying to make this all happen, and I realized that it's just, I don't have to carry the weight by myself. There are a lot of wonderful people. Anderson Cooper, I directly want to email you, but I don't know how to do it. And I don't want to put the entire show idea and everything with the tagline and the synopsis and everything I have ready, and I want to send it to you, Oprah Winfrey, and Tyler Perry. But I don't know how to get a hold of these very powerful people. And the reason I chose them is because they do represent the people, and they specifically go out of their way to ensure that they bring humanity up. And what better three people to be working with in this scenario that literally unites the planet in a way that's proactive and healthy. Instead of it being combative and lower vibrational, how about talk to the intelligentsia? How about bring them into it, and then actually have people like me or other people who are just on the up and coming, or think people that are gifted in ways that we don't quite understand, and other intelligences that we're not that familiar with, and let them ask questions. That humbling experience will allow every brilliant mind to see where they're not reaching the community, or where they're not making the most out of the bang for their buck, because they're blocking themselves because they speak in their language and they speak to the top 2%. Well, this shows about the 98%, and represented through people who have overcome adversity and are now willing to stand warts and all and represent the people. And that will allow the people to reinvest in leadership, to reinvest in global concern, and reinvest in humanity, reinvest in anything outside of themselves, so that we start working together to save the race. Because as we all know, you can't save people, but we can do something as a collective. And the divine universe, whatever you want to call it, God, Allah, the Buddha, whatever you believe in, is desperately asking us to rise above this chaos and above the monetary gains, and look at the world through the eyes of a child. Are you willing to save your children? What is the legacy that you wish to leave for the planet? And engage that conversation candidly. And that is what I would love to bring in investors, or bring in angel investors, or those particular three people, Anderson Cooper for sure, Oprah Winfrey for sure, and Tyler Perry for sure, are just to name a few. I still have a thing for Katy Perry, and there's all these people who have taken their fame, if you will, or their accomplishments, and done something for humanity. Well, how about now we do a collective thing where we come into partnership as friends, as allies, and just start building the world not as ourselves by ourselves, but in a group of people that are like-minded and who want to do something that really affects all of the planet. There's no reason for child trafficking. There's no reason for child abuse and child molestation. There's no reason for women to be secondary citizens. There's no reason for slavery. There's no reason for racism. There's no reason for homophobia. We need the leaders who are willing to step up and do something about it. And that's what Altruistic Channels was founded on. So, if Oprah Winfrey, Anderson Cooper, or Tyler Perry ever sees this, or if you happen to know them and believe in doing something for humanity and leaving a legacy that transcends our time here, then please forward this to them so that I can hopefully get a hold of them and send them all of the information they need. There are 2 ideas. One I've already sent to one person, and then this one is something that I think would be a global interest. They would be international. And that's very important at this time. The world is so in peril right now. Everybody's so scared. What if we finally dropped our egos and came to a table with someone like me who would moderate in a humble, honest, sweet way that was about regaining our control and feeling like we are heard in this world? It's not about money for me. And you guys know that. Look through the history of my channel. Look through all of my content, my articles on LinkedIn, whatever it is, my books. It's always been about humanity. What better hands to invest your time or your money or your effort in helping build something that will literally transcend all people everywhere? I want to focus on what's going on in Africa. I want to help everybody. I want to help people in communist areas. But I want to do it in a way that's not talking down to them. I want to unite the planet in being eye to eye. And I'm looking for those of you out there who want to do that. So if you're a network or if you're one of these 3 particular parties, please contact me. I'm completely willing and open to all forms of communication. I really think that we have an opportunity here to really do something for the planet that isn't self-indulgent or just about us. Everyone is doing the best that they can individually, but we're carrying so much weight by ourselves. What if we worked together? Imagine the world that we would live in. That's it for me on Altruistic Channel. I just want to do a brief little thing for today and kind of put that out there. I hope you guys have a blessed night. If you are interested in changing the world and doing something that builds a legacy that transcends all things, please let me know. Thank you.